The dust of Kasser clung to everything: Ryan McCormack's boots, his clothes, the calloused skin of his remaining hand. Even his dreams were gray now, like ash drifting through the wind. The farm had once been his redemption, his chance to grow something instead of destroying it. But after the fire, only charred beams reached toward the twin suns, like blackened ribs of a corpse. The air still smelled of smoke and failure. Ryan stood amid the wreckage, the acrid wind tugging at his sweat-streaked hair. He wiped his brow with his forearm, leaving a streak of soot across his face, and kicked a melted water pump. "Damn regulators," he muttered. The heat shimmered, making the distant horizon dance. His prosthetic arm, the one the medics had given him after the Krell plasma strike on Proxima, had been pawned months ago for supplies. Now he was truly one-armed one man, one ruined dream. The Colonial Credit Office would soon repossess the land anyway, but he couldn't make himself leave. Not yet. The silence pressed heavy against his ears, broken only by the rasp of wind through twisted metal. Then a sound unlike any storm alow, mechanical thrum rolled across the barren flats. Ryan looked up, squinting through the haze. A shuttle cut across the orange sky, sleek and silver, far too elegant for this forgotten place. It descended in a swirl of dust, hydraulic legs sinking into the scorched ground. Ryan's pulse quickened. Out here, nobody landed uninvited. His hand went instinctively to the old blaster at his hip as the ramp lowered with a hiss. For a moment, nothing. Then she appeared, tall, slender, impossibly graceful against the ruin. The light caught on her blue skin, making it glow faintly like dusk water. Silver-blue braids coiled into a regal knot atop her head, threaded with delicate metal rings that chimed softly when she moved. In each hand she carried a heavy suitcase, her posture unbroken by the weight. She looked around, her eyes bright and assessing, until they settled on him. "Ryan McCormack?" Her voice was clear, musical, edged with the lilt of someone raised in luxury. It took him a moment to find his own. "Who's asking?" "Enola Nix," she said simply, stepping forward. "You placed an advertisement on the Interstellar Match Network. Human veteran seeks companion for remote farm life." "Species irrelevant." Ryan blinked. The memory came back sharp and embarrassing. 6 months ago, a bottle of Thrixian liquor and a moment of loneliness. He'd forgotten all about it. He almost laughed, but the sound came out rough. "You're about 6 months too late," he said, gesturing to the ruins. "The farm's dead." Enola's gaze swept over the devastation without flinching. "Ben will rebuild it," she replied, as if stating a simple fact. "I didn't come empty-handed." She set down one suitcase, the lock plate glinting with complex circuitry. Ryan frowned. "Lady, I don't know what kind of mistake brought you here, but there's nothing worth saving." Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "You underestimate what can be grown from ashes, human man." Something in her tone, an unshakable calm, a quiet certainty, stirred the same stubborn pride that had driven him through war and recovery. He holstered the blaster and exhaled. "You got anywhere else to go tonight?" "No," she said softly. "Then you can sleep in the shed." "What's left of it?" Her smile deepened, and for the first time in months, Ryan felt the smallest crack in the wall he'd built inside himself. As she followed him across the charred yard, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood and gold. Behind them, the shuttle's engines cooled with a sigh, and for a fleeting moment, the ruins seemed almost alive again, lit by the soft glow of an alien stranger, who might just have brought more than light to a broken man's world. Dawn came sharp and merciless over Kasser, washing the horizon in pale orange light that burned through the dust. Ryan woke to the sound of movement inside the half-collapsed shed, the rhythmic rustle of someone unpacking. For a moment, disoriented, he thought it was the fire again, the crackle of collapsing beams, the hiss of heat. Then he saw her. Enela knelt on the dirt floor, the glow of morning catching in her braids like molten silver. One of her suitcases lay open beside her, its contents neatly arranged. Tools of fine alien make, sealed ration packs, and a folded square of something metallic that shimmered like water. She was efficient, focused, every movement deliberate. Ryan leaned on his elbow, studying her in silence. There was something surreal about the scene, the noblewoman working in the ashes of his broken life. She noticed his gaze and looked up, startled but not afraid. "You're awake," she said, her voice soft but composed. "I was trying not to disturb you." "You didn't," he lied, pulling on his boots. His hand brushed the blaster beside his cot, a habit more than a threat. "You planning to set up camp, or should I start worrying about another inspection team dropping from the sky?" Her lips tightened. "No one knows I'm here. And if they did, they wouldn't come. Because you're rich?" he asked, unable to keep the edge from his voice. She hesitated, then nodded. "Because they're afraid." That caught his attention. Afraid of what? Of what happens when one of their own refuses to obey. She closed the suitcase, the latch clicking shut with finality. "My father is a counselor. He arranged my marriage to Lord Draxvorn, a collector of wives, you might say. I preferred exile." Ryan stared, unsure whether to be impressed or horrified. "So you ran." "I took what was mine," she corrected. "My mother's inheritance resources, technology, and something worth protecting." Her fingers brushed the second suitcase, reverent and cautious. "You'd better keep that under wraps," Ryan muttered. "Out here, anything valuable paints a target on your back." Enela met his gaze squarely. "And yet, you didn't send me away." "Not yet," he said, still deciding if you're trouble or a miracle. A faint smile touched her lips. "Perhaps both." He huffed a quiet laugh despite himself and pushed open the warped door. Outside, the land stretched endless and empty flat plains of burnt ochre and ash, broken only by the black skeletons of his crops. The irrigation pipes still stood in rows, half melted but salvageable. "The neighbors'll come by," he said over his shoulder. "They always do when there's smoke. Don't take it personal. They're nosy but decent." As if summoned, a rumble echoed in the distance. 3 hover carts appeared on the horizon, shimmering in the heat. Ryan squinted. Right on cue. The first cart rolled to a stop near the fence. A thick-set alien with gray skin and 4 powerful arms climbed down, each one waving in a different rhythm. "McCormick," he called, his voice booming. "Heard you lost your farm. Figured you could use some company." "Grell," Ryan greeted warily. "I thought you were hauling to the northern settlements." "Storms closed the pass." "Besides," Grell said, nodding toward the wreckage, "you look like hell." His eyes, 8 of them, blinked in sequence as he noticed Enela emerging behind Ryan. "And who's this fine creature?" Ryan sighed. "Neighbor, this is Enela. Enela, this is Grell. Don't mind his manners, he was raised by dust devils." "You lucky bastard," Grell said with a grin that showed too many teeth. "Didn't know humans were recruiting wives now." Ryan ignored the jibe, but Enela smiled politely. "We're rebuilding," she said simply. "Then you'll need help," Grell replied. Carrie and the Sorens brought tools. The other 2 carts arrived, a Thrix female with shimmering chitin and a pair of reptilian Sorens carrying crates of seedlings. Soon the yard filled with movement and laughter. For the first time in months, Ryan's land rang with more than silence. He worked alongside them, sweat mixing with dust, his single arm straining as he hauled beams upright. Enela moved between groups, organizing with quiet authority, her hands steady even when the wind turned brutal. When the sun dipped low and the air cooled, they gathered around a makeshift table a crate, draped with a tarp and shared water and synthetic bread. "You've made quite the impression," Grell said between mouthfuls, nodding at Enola. "Haven't seen you smile this much since you lost the arm." Ryan glanced at her across the table, the dying light painting her skin in copper and blue. "Guess I forgot how," he admitted. Enola met his gaze, her expression softening. "Then perhaps," she said gently, "it's time to remember." The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of new soil, a smell that hadn't graced Kasser's air in years. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, letting it wash over him. Maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't finished with him yet. The days that followed blurred into one long rhythm of rebuilding hammer strikes. Shouted directions, the steady hum of alien machinery cutting through the desert air. Ryan's farm began to take shape again, though it looked nothing like the rough frontier outpost it once was. Enola's technology made everything easier: soil processors that hummed softly instead of belching smoke, drones that hovered over the fields planting seed clusters in perfect spirals, and a filtration unit that turned the brackish mineral water of Kasser into something clear and sweet. Even Grell whistled in awe when the irrigation line started pumping for the first time. "Never thought I'd see green on this damned planet," he muttered, wiping his brow. Ryan leaned on a fence post, watching the first shoots break through the ash. He wanted to feel triumphant, but a voice in his head kept whispering that it was too easy, too fast. Miracles always came with strings. Enola seemed tireless, moving from one task to another with purpose. Yet there were moments when Ryan caught her staring out toward the horizon, the wind tugging at her braids, her expression distant. He didn't ask what haunted her. He figured she'd tell him when she was ready. What he didn't expect was how much she started needing her company, the quiet hum she made while calibrating the soil unit, the way her laughter lightened the air around the dinner fire. He told himself it was gratitude, that he was just glad not to be alone. But the truth ran deeper. He liked her steadiness, her certainty, the way she looked at him, as if his scars were proof of worth, not ruin. One evening, as the twin suns dipped low, painting the sky in violet and gold, the neighbors gathered for a shared meal under the half-finished roof. Grell roasted desert fowl over a plasma stove, while Kiri's delicate antennae twitched in rhythm to the Thrixian hum she used as music. Even Harker, the grizzled trader from town, showed up with a bottle of synth ale. "Didn't think I'd live to see McCormick host a dinner again," Harker said, pouring himself a measure. Ryan smirked. "Don't get used to it. Might just be the apocalypse." Laughter rippled around the table, and for a moment, life felt normal, simple, good. Enola sat beside Ryan, her posture regal even on a cracked stool. "You have fine friends," she said quietly. "Decent people," he agreed. "We look out for each other. Out here, it's all we've got." Her expression softened. "On Lycia, friendship is transactional. Everything has a value until it doesn't." Ryan studied her profile, the way the firelight caught the faint silver patterns on her temple. "Maybe that's why you left," he said. "Maybe," she murmured. Before he could ask more, a low hum broke through the laughter, a sound too smooth, too precise to belong to any local craft. The air seemed to tighten. Grell's upper arms tensed, and Kiri's antennae snapped upright. "Ship incoming," she clicked. Ryan was already on his feet, scanning the sky. A sleek vessel cut through the dusk, its hull reflecting the fading suns. It descended fast, stirring a storm of dust as it landed just beyond the newly planted rows. Ryan's hand went to his blaster, old instincts flaring. "Inside," he ordered. But Enola didn't move. Her face had gone pale beneath its blue hue. "They've found me," she whispered. The hatch opened, revealing two tall Lycians in gleaming gray uniforms. Their movements were crisp, their arrogance unmistakable. Human, one called, his voice cold as polished metal. "We are investigators from the Lycian Collective. We seek a fugitive and stolen property. You will cooperate." Ryan stepped forward, shoulders squared, dust rising around his boots. "You got a warrant?" The taller Lycian blinked, confused. "A what?" "Warrant," Ryan repeated. "This is human territory. You don't search my land without one." The second alien's lips curled. "Your laws are irrelevant." "Then you can turn around," Ryan said evenly. "Or I'll make you." The Lycian's hand drifted toward his sidearm, but his partner raised a hand to stop him. "Enough. We'll return with authorization." His tone dripped with disdain. As they retreated to their ship, Enila exhaled shakily. The vessel lifted off, vanishing into the evening sky, leaving the table in stunned silence. Harker whistled low. "You just told off the Lycian Collective." "Guess I did," Ryan said, holstering his blaster. "Hope it was worth it." Enila turned to him, her eyes bright with a mix of fear and something else, admiration, maybe. "You risked yourself for me." "You brought my land back to life," he replied. Seemed fair. Around them, the neighbors began murmuring, already preparing plans, offers of help, lookouts. The fire crackled, casting long shadows across the soil that was no longer dead. Enila's hand brushed his lightly. "You should have sent me away." "Too late for that," Ryan said. "You're here now." And as the first stars pricked through the sky, he realized that for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in the fight. Night settled over Kasser like a heavy cloak. The twin suns long gone, and the moons rising pale above the newly sprouted fields. The farm was quiet, save for the soft hum of the irrigation pumps and the low murmur of wind through half-built walls. Ryan sat on the porch steps, cleaning the blaster he hadn't used in years, his single arm moving with slow, practiced precision. The Lycian's visit had shaken him more than he'd admit. He'd seen that kind of confidence before, the kind that came from men who believed laws existed only for others. Inside, faint light spilled from the small window of the new dwelling, where Enila worked over one of her cases. He'd caught glimpses of the shimmering object within a sphere, pulsing with faint blue light, like something alive, but she hadn't offered an explanation, and he hadn't pressed. Trust, he'd learned, wasn't something you demanded. It grew, one small decision at a time. He was lost in thought when her voice came softly through the doorway. "You should rest." He turned to find her standing there, a pale robe wrapped loosely around her, her silver blue braids unbound and falling past her shoulders. The sight startled him, not the beauty of her, though that was undeniable, but the vulnerability in her eyes. "I'll rest when I know they're not coming back," he said. "They will," she said quietly. "The collective never lets go once they've marked someone." She stepped closer, the faint glow from inside brushing her skin with light. "Ryan, if I leave tonight, they might not return. And if you stay, I'll finally have something worth fighting for," he replied. "Don't try to make my decisions for me." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the silence stretching thin and electric. Then she smiled faintly, something fragile and brave. "You're impossible, so I've been told." She moved past him to sit on the steps, her bare feet brushing the dust. "Where I come from," she said, "touch is rare, formal. Everything is politics, ceremony, posture. No one touches without reason." Ryan glanced at her, unsure if she was warning or inviting him. "And what about now?" "Now," she whispered, "I think I'm tired of reasons." Her hand brushed his. The contact was light, but it sent a current through him so strong it made him forget how to breathe. She turned her palm upward, and after a heartbeat's hesitation, he placed his hand in hers. The difference between them, human roughness and Lycian silk, felt like two worlds trying to remember how to meet. The night air thickened around them. He could feel the warmth of her shoulder through the thin fabric of her robe, smell the faint metallic sweetness of her skin. "If we survive this," he murmured, "you'll have to teach me that ceremony of yours." "Maybe I'll show you now," she said, and before he could answer, she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't cautious or tentative. It was deep, alive, and real. The kind of kiss that burned through every defense either of them had built. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his, whispering, "In Lycian tradition, that means I've chosen you." He swallowed hard, his voice rough. "Guess I'm honored, then." "You should be," she said, smiling through her breath, "but don't tell anyone. It might ruin my reputation." They laughed softly together, the sound strange and beautiful in the quiet of the desert night. Later, when the moons hung high and the world lay still, they found comfort in each other beneath the patched roof, two broken souls, reaching across species and circumstance to feel human again. Somewhere between exhaustion and peace, Ryan drifted into sleep, Anila's heartbeat steady against his chest. He didn't know how long he slept before the rumble woke him, a deep vibration that made the floorboards tremble. At first, he thought it was thunder, but Kasser had no storms. He was on his feet in an instant, grabbing his pants, pulling the blaster from its holster. Outside, the horizon glowed, not with fire, but with light from the sky. A massive vessel was descending, its hull gleaming like liquid pearl, engines stirring the dust into a furious storm. "Company," he muttered. Behind him, Anila appeared, clutching the sheet around her. Her face went bloodless. "That crest," she breathed, pointing at the markings etched into the ship's flank. "It's Vorn. Drax Vorn. He's here." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Your fiancé?" "My hunter," she corrected. "He'll take me back, and he'll kill you for touching what's his." Ryan chambered his weapon with a grim smile. "Then I guess we'd better make it worth the risk." Within minutes, the neighbors were rallying, the Sorens armed with mining drills. Grell grabbing his heavy wrench, Kiri stringing traps along the fence line. The night that had once felt endless and peaceful now vibrated with purpose. Ryan met Anila's gaze one last time. "If I tell you to run, you run. Don't look back." Her voice trembled, but her eyes held steady. "Not without you." The ship's landing thrusters roared, scattering their crops, flattening the fragile shoots of new life. Ryan squared his shoulders, the blaster heavy in his hand. "All right, then," he muttered, eyes on the descending vessel. "Let's see how a lord likes getting dirt on his shoes." The ship settled onto the plain like a silver predator crouching for the kill. Dust rolled across the field in thick waves, stinging Ryan's eyes as he watched from the porch, blaster drawn and heartbeat hammering in his chest. Anila stood beside him, her robe replaced by a fitted gray suit, her hair braided tight again. She looked like a woman ready to face her ghosts. The hatch hissed open, releasing a gust of cold, sterile air that reeked of authority. Down the ramp strode Lord Drax Vorental, indigo-skinned, adorned in robes that shimmered with woven circuitry. Behind him marched 6 Lycian guards in ceremonial armor, rifles slung across their backs. Vorn's gaze swept the scene, landing on Ryan and Anila with a slow, cruel smile. "Lady Nyx," he said, his voice smooth as oil. "You've been difficult to locate. But then, you always did enjoy dramatics." Anila's chin lifted. "I told you, Drax, I will never be one of your acquisitions." "And yet," he said, spreading his hands, "here you are standing beside a crippled farmer on a dust ball, clinging to delusions of freedom. How quaint." Ryan's muscles tensed, but he didn't move. "You've got a lot of nerve trespassing on human land." "A lot of practice," Vorn replied, his smile widening. "You must be the soldier she picked up." "Ryan McCormick, yes?" Proxima Centauri campaign. Lost an arm, gained a complex. He took a step forward, and the guards followed. I'm here for what belongs to me, Lady Nyx, and the codex she stole. Hand them over, and you might keep your farm a little longer. Ryan didn't blink. You're not taking either. Bravado, Vorn mused. It's almost charming. But you misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. His fingers flicked, and one of his guards raised a scanner that emitted a piercing whine. Enola flinched. You can't hide it, Vorn said. The codex resonates through the soil. A genius creation, really your mother's work, if I recall. It belongs to Lycia. It belongs to the galaxy, Enola shot back, her voice trembling but fierce. It can heal dead worlds, feed millions. My mother meant it for life, not control. Idealism, Vorn said with a sigh. Another family trait I'll have to correct. Ryan raised his blaster. You'll correct nothing. The guards reacted instantly, weapons snapping up, but Ryan fired first. The pulse bolt struck the scanner, sending it spinning out of the guard's hand in a burst of blue sparks. Next one goes through you, Ryan warned. That's enough. Vorn snarled. You think your primitive weapons matter? Do you know who I am? A man too afraid to get his own hands dirty, Ryan said. You brought soldiers to steal from a woman. For the first time, Vorn's composure cracked, the silver marks on his skin pulsing angrily. I tire of this. He gestured sharply. Kill the human. Bring the woman alive. The guards advanced, but before they could fire, a deep tremor rolled through the ground. The soil beneath their boots shivered and then glowed faintly blue. What? One guard began, but he never finished. Vines burst from the earth, thick and luminous, wrapping around their legs and weapons. The soldiers shouted in alarm as the plants coiled tighter, yanking them to the ground. Ryan turned, stunned, to see Enola standing in the field, her eyes blazing with light. The codex, buried beneath the soil, was awake. I told you, she called over the roar of the wind. It gives life. The barren ground rippled, green shoots erupting in concentric waves from her feet. The air filled with the scent of growth-wet earth, pollen, oxygen rich and new. Flowers unfolded in seconds, their petals glistening with dew under Kasser's twin moons. Ryan felt his chest tighten, all-swallowing fear. You activated it? I had to, she said, her voice carrying over the wind. It's the only way to make him listen. Vorn staggered backward as vines clawed at his robes, his guards thrashing helplessly around him. Stop this madness. He shouted. You'll destroy everything. No, Enola said, stepping closer, her glow softening to something almost tender. I'm creating everything you tried to own. The vines stopped just short of him, holding him in place. Her voice lowered, calm and resolute. You want power, Drax? Here it is. A gift for your people, but only if you let them share it. Ryan approached slowly, his weapon lowered now, eyes fixed on Vorn. Or you can go back to your golden cities and explain how a one-armed farmer and a runaway bride beat the great Lord Vorn with nothing but dirt and sunlight. For a moment, no one moved. Then Vorn's expression shifted not anger, but something closer to calculation. You think this ends with mercy, human? It ends with empire. Maybe, Ryan said, but not yours. Enola raised her hand, and the vines uncoiled, falling away from Vorn's feet. Take what you've seen and tell them, she said softly. Tell them life doesn't belong to the few anymore. Vorn stared at her for a long, taut moment before turning sharply. This isn't over. He stalked back to his ship, his guards limping after him, their armor slick with sap and humiliation. When the vessel finally lifted into the sky, the only sound left was the whisper of new leaves rustling in the wind. Ryan exhaled, lowering his weapon. Around them, the field had transformed lush, alive, radiant under the moons. He looked at Enola, her glow fading, exhaustion softening her features. "You just made a target out of us both," he said quietly. "Then we'd better make something worth aiming at," she replied, a tired smile touching her lips. He reached out and took her hand, their fingers intertwining amid the scent of fresh soil and blooming flowers. For the first time, the desert of Kasser didn't feel dead. It felt like a beginning. Morning broke over Kasser in a blaze of pale gold, the twin suns rising above a landscape that no longer belonged to the desert, where ash and ruin had once stretched endlessly. Green life now shimmered across the horizon, broad-leafed plants bending under dew, rivers of color running between furrows, and trees already climbing toward the new light, as if the planet itself had taken a deep breath for the first time in centuries. Ryan stood at the edge of the field, one boot in the soil, one on the old concrete step, unable to speak. The Codex's pulse still hummed faintly beneath his feet, like a second heartbeat under the world. He glanced back at the farmhouse, its patched walls gleaming white under the suns. Enola was there, leaning against the doorframe, a mug of steaming water in her hands, her blue skin glowing with the same quiet energy that filled the air. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she teased softly. "Just wondering if I'm still asleep," he said. "Yesterday, this was sand and rock. Today, it's Eden." She smiled faintly. "My mother used to say, creation is simply persistence in disguise." He turned toward her, brow furrowed. "And how long does it last? This miracle of yours?" "Forever," she said, though her voice faltered slightly. "If it's allowed to grow. If it's protected." He caught the flicker of fear in her eyes before she looked away. "He'll come back, won't he?" he asked. "Vorn, not just him," she admitted. "The Council will want to claim what's happened here. They can't allow one of their own to rewrite the balance of power." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then we make it hard for them. You can't fight an empire, Ryan." "Maybe not," he said, "but I can sure as hell make it bleed if it tries to take what's mine." She didn't argue this time. Instead, she stepped closer, setting her mug aside, her fingers brushing the edge of his hand. "What will you do now?" "What I came here to do," he said, a faint smile cutting through his exhaustion. "Build, grow, leave." Her gaze lingered on him, steady, unreadable, full of something that made his chest ache. Before either could say more, the communicator on the porch table buzzed to life, its signal blinking in urgent red. Ryan frowned, picking it up. "It's Grell," came the familiar rumble through static. "You'd better see this." The line crackled and then projected a grainy hologram into the air, a transmission feed showing the Lycian Capital's council chamber. Lord Vorn stood before the assembly, regal once more, his robes immaculate, voice booming. "My lords, my ladies, I bring proof of the Codex's restoration proof that Lycian technology can renew dying worlds. I present it not as conquest, but salvation." A murmur swept through the chamber. The image flickered again, showing the Codex's pulse radiating from Kasser. "He's using your work," Ryan muttered. Enola shook her head slowly. "No. Listen." Vorn's voice lowered, almost reverent. "The Codex will not answer to our kind alone. It responded only when human and Lycian will align. That balance cannot be replicated, only honored." He paused, looking directly into the projection feed, as though staring straight at them. "Let this world stand as testament. Life thrives through unity, not dominion." The feed cut. Silence filled the porch. Ryan lowered the communicator. "That bastard," he said, half in disbelief, half in admiration. "He just bought himself sainthood." "And bought us time," Enola replied quietly. "He's reframed it as progress, not rebellion. The Council won't attack their own symbol of renewal." Ryan laughed softly, rubbing the back of his neck. Guess even tyrants know when to switch uniforms. Enela's smile was faint, tinged with melancholy. He saw something that day, Ryan. Maybe in us. Maybe in himself. You really think he's changed? No, she said. But I think he's learning. They stood side by side in the morning light, watching the field sway. Birds, actual birds, drawn by the sudden abundance, spiraled in the distance, calling to one another in strange, high-pitched cries. The neighbors began arriving soon after, their hovercarts cutting trails through the green. Grell and his family, Kiri with her delicate antennae quivering in the sunlight, the Sorens carrying baskets of fruit, already ripened overnight. They gathered near the porch, staring in silent awe at the transformed world. She did it, Grell said finally, his deep voice breaking the quiet. You both did. Enela smiled, her eyes misting. No, she said. We all did. That night, as the suns fell and the moons rose silver over a living world, Ryan led her down to the edge of the field where the first sprouts had appeared. Fireflies drifted like tiny stars among the leaves. He knelt, awkwardly, his single arm steadying him on the soft ground. When I wrote that ad, he said, his voice low, I asked for someone who could handle hard work and solitude. I think I got a little more than I bargained for. She laughed, the sound quiet and beautiful in the dusk. And which part are you keeping? The hard work, he said, reaching for her hand. But the solitude? I'm done with that. Her smile trembled as he pulled her closer, their foreheads touching under the glow of the twin moons. You're serious? She whispered. Deadly, he said. So if you'll have a one-armed fool with a half-burned farm. That's now the most fertile land on Kasser. She interrupted softly. Yes, he said. That one. She didn't answer with words. Her kiss was slow and certain, sealing the promise between them. Around them, the codex's hum deepened, faint blue light threading through the soil, as if the planet itself bore witness. And far above, among the stars, the Lycian relay satellites recorded a new signal one neither side had expected. The codex's signature had changed again, its encryption rewritten by two genetic imprints intertwined, one human, one Lycian. The device would now respond only to both. It was as if the universe itself had agreed. Creation belonged to them together, or not at all. Ryan didn't know it yet, but when historians would one day speak of Kasser, they would call it the first shared world. For now, he just held Enela closer, the scent of life rising all around them. And for the first time in years, he let himself believe that some fires burned only to make room for something better to grow.